Hi guys, welcome to another episode of BetterTech, where we invite people like Chris that we have today, who are the industry leaders to make us know where the world is headed and make us help how to make sense of the things that are happening today in the world of AI and ML. So, Chris, why don't you start by introducing yourself, your background, your organization, what are you planning to do? Right?
Yeah, well, first, thank you very much for having me. And one thing I do feel is important given the timing is just to mention how lucky the two of us are to be here in a space of relative comfort, to be able to talk about work and technology when so many other people don't have that luxury right now and don't have the same level of security. So I not only feel fortunate to be able to talk with you today about this, but I just feel fortunate in general. So I feel like that goes without saying. And thank you so much for having me. So my background is I studied economics in college. I focused mostly on macroeconomics. That's what I was drawn to in my studies. And afterwards, that led me to a position in currency investments, because, it was a very natural transition. So I was really always fascinated with macroeconomic policy, also international policy. That's what my thesis was. It was about business cycles, global business cycles. And so after one of the positions I had after college was in quantitative currency investments, where we would forecast fluctuations in currency prices and do a lot of modeling. And so that was really my introduction to programming, statistical programming. In fact, I was using MATLAB at the time, and a lot of operations that's not too dissimilar from what like people would learn as they're doing ML. I imagine the approach now is very different than it was then, but that was my early introduction to the professional field. I did find that I wanted to create more. I was drawn to create more. I had an internship during college at a startup in Chicago called MVP.com. It was interesting because some of the financial backers were pro athletes. I might not remember this exactly, but I believe it was like Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky. And the thing, that was really fun. I was in the merchandising department, so we would put product lines up on the website. It was really quite an interesting job, but my timing was, I don't know, when you say it was necessarily good or bad, but my last day, they had large layoffs because it was when the bubble, the kind of .com, that initial bubble around like 2000 or so
Around
burst.
2000, yeah, I remember
And
that.
they were affected by that. And so that was during my internship. And so it was wild to be present for that. There's so much optimism there, a real engaged, friendly workforce. They did spend a lot of money. I have to say that they had a beautiful office on Michigan Avenue, all of the nicest furniture and everything there. And maybe that's a lesson as well. But, of course, people were really affected by it too. But what I saw is that people loved their jobs and wanted to keep working in the field and move forward. And so when I was at Putnam Investments, working in currency investments, I really looked back on that job and loved this idea of creating. And so that's when I pivoted to work and learn really kind of programming and design. I was drawn to design. So I started to gravitate towards product management, and then I later went to Parsons, the New School for Design. I did a design and technology program and an MFA program that really just it's a very applied program. So you just learn to create through doing, but you also learn design principles along the way. And so that's where I also learned more modern.
Yeah, looking at your profile, interaction design kind of a course, or like experience, the overall experience design kind of thing, right?
In a sense, it was both, right? You would even learn, they even had coursework on in graphic design and presentation, right? It was, design as a discipline as a whole And people would go down different tracks. So some people might create something, using, a lot of people are using Raspberry Pis and doing physical computing and creating artwork from that, or commentary. Some people were creating what might be like a prototype product. People were doing mobile design as well at the time. It might be more like for a product or a service, or it might be more of an exploratory creative use of the technology. So maybe using the iPhone as a mechanism for storytelling, right? So like there was some people in my class who were really interested in using that technology to create like digital stories that fit that interface. So it is a really open-ended program, but the important element was to learn the design process, design principles, understand what it is you're trying to build, and effectively bring it to life.
Great, great.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this was around maybe after 2005 or 2006, when iPhones were around more. They were more.
Yeah, this was after that. So it was, around 2009 or so, 2010. So it was, iPhone, iPad, I was playing around with the iPad a lot. I was really drawn to the Twitter API at the time. That was so much fun. One of the areas where I focused a lot was using Twitter for sentiment analysis at airports. And it was more of a like naive sentiment analysis. What I think we're going to get into today is the students who are in the programs now have a whole different tool set at their disposal to play around with that. So some of the things I was doing for sentiment analysis was grabbing libraries that might help classify terms as positive or negative, and doing some sort of weighting, and it was a little bit more heuristic, not quite as algorithmic in that sense, and it was definitely not using an LLM or anything like that. And at the same time, I was really fascinated by it because I picked different themes. So like, what did TSA look like? What did the
I'll
bag
call it the actual or bare minimum data science, like bare bone data science.
Exactly, and you kind of think of it too as like, I feel that people often forget when you're trying to understand something. Usually, the first step is just to really understand the data. You don't like. It's getting more easy now to run models or use technologies, but before, and I think even now, sometimes it's just most important to look at the data and understand the data quality, right? Like, and that really is critical, right? You have to check it to see if it's reliable, if it's any good. And so I think there was an element of that, of cleaning it up, and really also just fascinated me. I just enjoyed it, yeah.
So then came Fetcher AI.
Yeah, so after Parsons, it timed out well where I was able to join a Techstars cohort. I wasn't one of the founders, but they had like people who could come in through the program, and so I was there with some other people as like design resources, which was really cool because what we could do is work with all of the different companies. And so I ended up working with one of the companies there and staying along there. I really enjoyed the team, and through that process, that's how I met Andreas Blank, my co-founder, our CEO, and we started working together. And that's really what leads us to Fetcher. Our initial explorations, wasn't exactly what we were doing with Fetcher. So, but there is still, in what we do right now, like there's the basis of where we started. So when we first started, we were looking at LinkedIn and just realizing that, maybe it was because of the way it's structured with the different degrees of connection. It was difficult for people who might be outsiders to find a way to break into groups, right? So Andres is from Venezuela. He came to the United States, and so he found that he really had to work hard to kind of break through and to network. I tend to be a more kind of reserved and introverted person, and so maybe like I have to overcome that a little bit. But there's also like there's just sometimes these challenges to breaking through, and not just that, but finding the right people to connect with. And right by right being defined as the people who you're really interested in, who you feel you could learn from, people you could work with, whatever that may be. And so we started by building an application that was maybe more consumer focused, really focused on like connecting people, and so one of the things that was kind of interesting at the time, and some other people did it as well, it had the like Tinder mechanic of like trying to like kind of say yes or no to a few people who you might want to connect with, and then it could help to like recommend like other people that you could connect with, and would recommend those people to be ones that you could reach out to. So if you're moving to New York and you wanted to meet designers and maybe from certain companies, you could go through that process and then start to see people who fit what you were looking for. There's always a danger in building off of APIs, right? That's a business risk that's always there, and we're cognizant of that. And so one of the things that kind of changed our trajectory was LinkedIn was going to shut down a lot of their APIs. They wanted, that's of course, well within their right. And so that meant that our service, in a sense, that use case just wouldn't work the same way, right? And so then it became necessary to pivot. And so what we did is really reflected on, and I credit Andres so much for this, is we reflected on who was most interested in using this product for connecting, and we found it was recruiters and salespeople. There's a lot of products, and there were a lot of products at the time for lead generation and sales. There's less for kind of built for recruiters. That's changing now. There's more in the space, but we took that basis of understanding who people want to connect with, who they want to network with and connect, and that's what we built into Fetcher. And so that's how we kind of morphed or evolved into what we're doing now. And it's a really exciting area to focus on. One of the things I do love about recruiters is we have this dog theme, of course, within our name and within our brand. But I felt that recruiters were underdogs when it came to budget, when it came to tools. And I've always loved, being a resource for the underdog and, providing valuable tech for the underdog. And that's what I feel like we do.
Great. So one thing is that your core product is actually what I'm imagining is based on AI engine, behind the scene recommendation engine, or all that stuff. The other thing is the use of AI in your development processes, right? While developing this product, are you using AI or something? So of course, in the core product, when it comes to AI, machine learning, data science, that's the underpinning for serving up the best recommendations, right? And also, really being able to scale that process. When we started out, one of the areas that we focused on is we've always had what you'd say like a human in the loop. And that's because when we first started out and we were validating Fetcher, something I forgot to mention is that the first, it wasn't exactly the first version or prototype, but what we did is we took a Google spreadsheet, put a bunch of names of people that fit, who people we knew may want to hire, put like their image there, a brief job description, and a link that you can put in the Google Sheet that would create like an email, a hyperlink that does a pre-filled email. And kind of ask them like, what else do you want? Like, because knowing that people aren't likely going to just pay for a spreadsheet, but what it is, promising is finding the right people, finding a way to contact. And through that, we learned, the workflows and the other aspects to sourcing, hiring that are important to people and to businesses. Fundamental to that is finding the right people. And so we've always taken an approach of, having a human in the loop, but also like helps us to build and label and evaluate our data set, right? So by having a team of people, that like helps us to be able to
source when we didn't have much data. We didn't have much labeled data, much validated data. And also, build up expertise within a certain area, and then serve quality results to our customers. And then as we repeat that over time, we have more information to do a much better job at recommending the right people algorithmically, right? So, in a sense, it's a process, but that's also like kind of like another lesson in just kind of building out something that might, not start fully automated, and then kind of build out. I think something that has kind of changed even since we started is there have been like LLMs kind of changed that, right? Like the process of testing and evaluating, it's so much easier. There's few shot learning, zero shot learning. A lot of that started to develop over the years. So it's really interesting how I believe, like, we might talk about the process of development, but even the process of validating these things, testing this, serving results, that has gotten much easier, right? And that's, really an exciting thing more than anything else. But, and our focus is, we're building up a strong data set, clean data set, and then have the models underlying it to be able to serve the best results.
So you have already touched upon some challenges that you faced, and typically the first challenge is the data, because you need data to train your model. So
absolutely.
So how did you start? For example, you built something minimal to collect the data and then keep on maturing your models, or how did you do it?
Yeah, we did start there. And then I think as we got traction, what we were able to do is build out like data partnerships through like vendors that were able to validate. And so that was the game changer. That's when we were able to start taking a machine learning driven approach and be able to pair the team that we have and the kind of labeling or validation curation that they're doing with that data set, right? So that was a game changer for us. What I think is interesting is access to data is, people might say it's like a commodity, but that's becoming more open. And so a lot of people will have access to a certain amount of data. And then what I think becomes more interesting is the information that companies have within their own ecosystem that become really valuable signals that lead to either like more accurate results or maybe better results, be able to cover more broad territories or more depth within the market. And for us, that took the shape of, not only having, we've sent millions of profiles to our customers. And so if you think about having a team, kind of evaluating a lot of that, we've had a tremendous amount of validation and labeling done internally that helps us to know that the data is clean, which is a true advantage for us. But then we also have validation from our customers, right? They're able to give us feedback as well. They're able to say whether or not they feel somebody's a good fit. That's, more binary feedback, but they can also give qualitative feedback, so notes on the person. So we can use that text now and take those notes and see, how do the notes, how can we use those notes to better serve profiles, the next time around for our customer, but, just in general. And then what excited me the most, and I think one of our kind of most successful models was built on top of our email inbox, where what we did is we get responses from candidates and we just label the probability of interest. So are they interested, likely interested, or not interested? It's not the hardest problem to solve, but it's very useful for customers because what they can do is sort their inbox by who's most interested or least interested. And then we've built templates for those cases so that you can very quickly, especially for like people who are not interested, reply and just thank them for responding. It's, really positive for employee branding, and it keeps the connection alive. But also have templates for the people who are interested so that you can engage them sooner, because one thing we did find in our analysis is that the people who tend to get hired, this isn't always the case, they often reply rather quickly. They're eager. They're like and so one thing companies don't want to do is be slow getting back to them, right? You want to get back to them and validate your own interest as well, or revalidate it. So that model for me was just so exciting because it's simple and it's just so valuable, right? There's so many more things that we can build on top of it. And one of the things too with we're seeing with LLMs is the templating that we can do, and that's something we're exploring, can be more dynamic now. Before it was a little bit more static, and now we have the potential to be more dynamic.
Yeah. So Chris, having been through all this, I mean, from 2000 to 2000 till here, you've been there, done that, every kind of thing. So where do you think are we headed? Where is the world headed with all this new capabilities and new things? Like generative is a new thing relatively, and where do you think we are headed?
It's really interesting. I was reflecting on that. I've been reflecting on that quite a bit. In some respects, I don't know that I'm the most well positioned, but I do feel that what we're seeing right now is real rapid adoption of this technology by people of all walks of life. And so you had mentioned talking about AI and software development, but I have to imagine, I'm kind of curious, how many people do you know outside of software development, outside of tech, that have tested ChatGPT?
All of my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so. Mine are a bit too young, but what I think is really interesting is that across every team in our organization, we talk about it, right? Because it's there's all these different use cases. Of course, there's instances of people using LLMs for content generation. People can use it for drafts of different documents, even legal document drafts. I have on a product management team is used to do, there's JQL, the jQuery kind of SQL language, to debug and do that, so there's been so many use cases for that. And also across the team, it's, I haven't really looked at or researched, what's happened to Stack Overflow, since it's come out, but I feel like it's replacing that kind of, what people who are learning in software development do. They might go to Stack Overflow or a different site, figure out how to solve a problem. Now they can do that with this chat interface and get fairly reliable results and kind of move forward in that regard. And so I do see it in terms of where we're going. I do see it being more and more embedded in our lives in ways that it's almost more quickly than other tech, has been. But then at the same time, I hope it's done really thoughtfully, because there's still open-ended problems with it that need to be solved, or liability issues that need to be solved. It might work for some use cases better than others. There's kind of a risk inherent in that, so that's one of the things I do see. I see quite a bit of experimentation. I'm not 100% sure what all the outcomes will look like, to be honest.
I'm too, because I think we are adopting it pretty quickly and very fast, without knowing how much correct it is, because it tells you something, but you can never be. So it can hallucinate. And
100%. And then so I can give an example of I had a friend that one of the first people I'd heard of ChatGPT this a while ago. I didn't have the demo available yet, and I had a friend who had it and was playing around with it. And one of the things he did for my son was he used it to write a children's story, and it was just kind of a silly children's story. And so I've done that a couple times, but I've also done a couple darker ones as a joke. And so I did one about a mouse, and I said it in the kind of German kind of fairy tale style. And so I thought it'd be kind of like a dark fairy tale. And I was using Claude by Anthropic. And what made me laugh, and I should have expected this, is that I said in the German style, and it wrote it in German. And I just started laughing because I wasn't expecting it. But honestly, I was thinking about it taking things literally. I should have expected it. I then asked it to translate it to English. But I think the danger is that I don't speak German, right? And I have no means to evaluate that response. And so I think there's so many other use cases, right? It might be in software development or whatever it may be. You mentioned hallucinations, where it could set somebody down the right path if they're using it without some knowledge of the field that they're asking about, and understanding of being able to say, well, like, this doesn't look quite right, and so if people trust the results too much and not do enough thinking and evaluation on their own, like, that's very, very dangerous right now. And so I think that's worrisome across every use case.
Yeah. So Chris, you said that you're an introvert and you think a lot, and so that's why I'm asking this. So do you think this will make us more superficial? Because it gives you some answer, and if the new generation starts believing in it and they stop, for example, in case of Stack Overflow also, we have observed that when we try to solve the problem and we went to Stack Overflow, the first solution was not always the most optimal solution.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it gives you a superficial answer, which may work, but
Yeah.
may not be best. So, and with this chat GPT and these kinds of technology, this thing will actually magnify many folds. And do you fear that it will make the new generation stop thinking more in depth or be superficial?
It's a really interesting question. It might, I suppose that superficial might come with like a layer of like judgment to it, and like, I don't know, because I know that some people, and I don't know neuroscience well enough, but I do feel that we use our brains very differently than our ancestors did. If you go back, quite a different ways, and then even just having like access to Google or different things, we may not remember, like, for instance, I believe like people could recite stories and like in such depth and clarity that I feel most people would struggle with right now, and be able to remember texts with like depth and clarity that people would struggle with now because we're inundated with so much information. And so it kind of crowds it all out. I do feel, to your point, that if this kind of technology is more widespread, I have to feel it would result in changes to people, whether it's like people are more superficial, or one part of the brain is turning off and another part is turning on. Is that good or bad? I do think that's correct. I don't know neuroscience well enough to kind of judge where it's going, knowing whether it's good or bad, but I think you have an excellent point, and I do feel like that could happen.
Thank you so much, Chris, for being here with us in this talk. And we do love a lot talking to you. And so with this, we end this talk. And anything else that you want to share, Chris?
No, I appreciate the time today. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. See you.
Bye.